Okay.
Take it from there.
So my introduction to myself is, I'm Roger Knudson. So welcome. You know, I worked in corrections education, so you're not a very tough group. So also, you know, when I worked there and went to conferences, we had experts come, and it had to be, they had to come from 50 miles or more in a briefcase. So I'd come from over 50 miles with a bunch of interesting stuff, so maybe I'm the expert tonight, but maybe not. So I don't know everything, it's just amazing every time I think I do. Well, so when we talk, I've been building furniture since, well, about 50 years now. I'm a little bit older than I love to. I've probably built about 400 pieces. I've sold a bunch. I used to sell enough to have a trip to Europe every year. I haven't sold so many lately. I still have a house full. Now I need to build an addition to the house to put the next bunch of stuff in. And I've moved from furniture to kind of sculpture. You see the chisel here versus the tea cabinet. And I'll talk about that. So when I look at design, I look at it in two arenas. It's what you design, which is really important, and then how you design, which is not all that important as long as it works for you. I know some people get religious about it, and there's the church of my way of doing it, and that's it. I'm not into that stuff. So as I talk along and there's stuff you disagree with, that's fine. I'm probably talking more about what I do versus what you have to do or other alternatives. And there are many alternative design. You've got a handout that are 10 rules of work by Wendell Castle. I think most of you have heard of or know of Wendell Castle. He's now dead, and he taught at Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York, and it was a forerunner in all kinds of different wild and crazy woodworking that was phenomenal. He has a piece in the Smithsonian at the Renwick Gallery. If you've been there, if you haven't, go to the Renwick Gallery, and it's called it's a grandfather clock. But it's just a big canvas over a grandfather clock with a rope belt tying it in. And I've been there a few times, and I saw a woman once who walked up to it and said, well, that's dumb. Anybody could do that. It's all wood. The canvas, the rope, everything is all wood. And he's treated the wood with color and stuff in it. I mean, you're this close and you swear that all he did is throw a canvas over an old grandfather clock. What a piece of work. It's just amazing. Is it furniture? No, is it art? Oh yes, it really is. And he did introduced to the world stack laminations. He stacked his lamination and carved couches and all sorts of furniture out of that stuff. So his rules are really something that guide my sense of design. When we get too careful, we get too tied up in a little narrow alley of design, you look at the stuff and it gives you a little perspective on how you might approach your work as you do it. I like the number 10. If you hit the bullseye every time, the target is too near. So if you built 500 beautiful coffee tables, maybe you could move a little bit. And so these are all just a guideline for your personal consideration, and have a read, post those on your shop, take a look at them once in a while. I like to encourage people to be open to design, and I'm not a preacher of a design or a school of design. Some arenas of design I don't like, some I really like. You know, I don't like early American, but that's maybe what you build, and you can probably do some really nice work there. Some people don't like my modern, crazy, no-count stuff, and that's okay too. So be open to looking at, as you go through the thing, this work that we do, at least for me, and perhaps most of you, it's not a business. You're not counting on it to make a living and to pay the rent and to buy food. It's for fun. So have fun with the design. Let go, let it be fun, experiment, make mistakes. You probably don't do that, make mistakes. By the way, I have 2 people currently coming one day a week to work with me and learn some stuff. When they come in, I say, listen, you cannot make a mistake that I haven't already made. Which is quite true. Okay, so I look at, again, design in 2 arenas. What you make and how you make it. What you make depends on what the wife wants you to make, what the grandkids are looking for, or just what you darn well please at the moment. The grandkids aren't looking for a chisel and a block of wood, and they're probably not looking for a tea cabinet for a Japanese tea ceremony. But I build this way. I moved off into the sculptural stuff for a while. I had a piano. I've got a card up there. This is crash commercialism. I'm trying to sell this thing. It takes a lot of room up in my shop. It's a Salvador Dali piano, I call it. It's a grand piano that's drooped, like, remember his clocks, the melted clocks? Well, Igor Stravinsky's holding up the drooped piano. You can take a look at it, take a card later.
That's so wrong.
Yeah, you can come get one of these later. Anyway, not to just go on and on about it, but it was really fun making. It's based in the form of a grand piano. It's got strings and it doesn't play a note. So, holding up this wavy keyboard is Salvador Dali. So I had to do a little sculpture of the face. I had a welding friend weld a body for him, and I had a music staff coming out, emanating from the piano, from the soundboard, and the notes on it, they're all made in copper. The actual notes of the first 2 measures of Rite of Spring by Stravinsky. And I had a really good experience the other day. There's a new guy in the guild, Norbert Milibowski, played bassoon in the Minnesota Orchestra for 30 years. And my wife and I had him up for, me and his wife, for lunch. And I, showing him the piano, and said, just a minute. Ran out to his car, got his bassoon, and played not only the first 2 measures, which is a bassoon solo, but the next 8 or 10 measures. So he baptized my piano. That is cool. So what you design, you need to ask, where do you get your inspiration? I get mine from a variety of places. A friend of mine looks at nature, trees, flowers, anything outside in the forest, rock formations. I get mine looking at other woodwork. Some things just come into the mind out of the blue sky, like this. So that was what I wanted to say. Anyway, I forgot. Some things just come, and why? Where did that come from? I just thought I'd like to make a big giant chisel in a block of wood, and that was it. And there's a guy named Klaus Oldenburg. You might have heard of him. He made the Spoon and Cherry down at the Walker Art Center. He does these giant things, kind of in that sense. He also did a pair of scissors about 50 feet tall, stuck in the ground. Mine's not 50 feet tall. Mine's only 5 feet long. On one of my slides, I had slides, and we just couldn't get a hook up here with the right cords. I'm sorry about that. I made a tomato soup can, about this long, this big around, with a 5-foot-long hand saw, sawing the lid off. And you guys know Andy Warhol? Mm-hmm. You've seen the tomato soups. My piece is called Andy's Camel Bear. And I have a carved but painted drip of soup coming out. And that's with a client in Baltimore now. too bad I don't have the picture. But I also had an artist friend do the label, just like Campbell's tomato soup. And in the center, I think they have an eagle or something on the little medallion. She painted Andy Warhol's picture. So that was a lot of fun. So that's what I mean about having fun. You know, what are you going to do with the tomato soup can? You're going to tell your company, look at this piece I got. I guess that's about it. So you get your inspiration from your own head, from what you see around you, from other people's work. You see a checkerboard, oh, I like the three-dimensional thing in that. Oh man, I got to do some three-dimensional stuff, but I'm going to make the whole side of a cabinet that way or something. You know, taking inspiration from bits and pieces from other furniture. And I look at that other furniture a lot, books, magazines, and so on. So, methods, how to design. Well, there's a lot of methods. I think one of the most important things in designing is sketching. Paper and a pencil and just go with it. I call that designing. You're thinking, you're coming up with ideas. This isn't a building plan, this is a sketch of a piece you're going to build. Now I may be wrong, but I think sketching is designing. Using CAD is engineering. I know people who design with CAD or SketchUp, whatever, right on the spot. I just think you're a little more free with just a hand and a pencil and a piece of blank paper. And I have a friend who uses graph paper, and I say, just get a plain piece of paper. I know it might scare him to be not guided by lines. He has a certain amount of OCD personality. I guess that's his problem. I'm the other way. That's my problem. So, you probably do drafting or sketching or pencil drawings or using a T-square on a drafting board. Maybe if you're a modern day old guy like me, you probably use SketchUp or one of the computer-based planning programs. I don't. I've never wanted to take the time to learn that. So I sketch a lot. Now these are just, you can come look at these later, but I'll sit down and just think, I want to build a cabinet. I wonder if I should do this one or do that one. You'll see some small drawings of the oval cabinet. I initially made an elliptical cabinet about that diameter, if you will, about this high, that was a jewelry box with doors, and it had a little thing to hang necklaces in, a couple of drawers inside, and a couple of spin-out drawers. And I liked the ellipse a lot. By the way, I do a lot of curved stuff, and I tell people, because I really probably can't build a thing with straight lines. So long as you're going to be crooked, might as well make it nice. I like the ellipse better than a circle. Nothing wrong with the circle. I think it's just a little more intriguing to the eye. It's a little more something to seeing that. So thinking, oh, I like that shape. I made a big cabinet for some artwork, probably with this long axis and about 6.5 feet tall, with big doors, and the bottom half is open, so you can put sculpture on the floor underneath. And then you open the doors and the lights come on. So got some drama. Made with, you guys use bending plywood, anybody? We've done, three of us did a workshop with Woodworkers Guild on bending wood, 3 methods. One was using bending plywood in a vacuum bag. I did a piece on bent laminations. Another guy did a piece on steam bending. And it at least gave them enough information to say, oh yeah, I could go try that. So again, the other thing I always encourage, try stuff. Try stuff. For years, a always my next piece was a step above my level of skill each time. And you keep doing that over 30 years and pretty soon you'll learn something. Or you have a lot of nice warm fires in the winter, which I've had. This is a complete plan for a piece I'm building now. You say, that's not a plan. That's a sketch. That's what I call a sketch. Mark Laub and I were out out east at a show. We had a couple of pieces in a show, and driving home, my son called me and said, Dad, you better stop in northern Indiana at the Cord Auburn Duesenberg Museum. A lot of people say, what are those? Those are 3 cars that were made at that one factory in the 30s, and they were kind of high-end fancy car. Cord was the first front-wheel drive car. Duesenberg were the big long things that you usually had a chauffeur for. So Mark and I are in there, our eyes out on stocks like this. Just amazed, over 100 cars. If you're ever in northern Indiana, do stop in. We get back in the car, and Mark said, okay, let's each build a cabinet based on one of those cars. And then we'll have a contest with my design group and see who wins. Now, if you know Mark Laub, you probably think I'm an idiot for trying to compete with him. Because he does pretty fantastic work. Well, me too. Kind of. So we come home, I'm going to build a 1934 Chrysler Airflow, and he's going to build a 1935 Cord Sportster, I think it's called. And we're really talking it up. He's going to kick my ass. I'm going to humiliate him. So we'll see how that happens. But I'm going to have them all up to my house for the vote. And each guy gets a quart of Maker's Mark and a 2-inch thick steak. So don't let that influence you. Some guys will do anything to win. So I'm having a lot of fun because I thought, all right, if I make a Chrysler car, it's going to be about this big. People say, well, where'd you get the kit? That's pretty cool. It's not going to be a kit car because it'll just have the front end and kind of the back end open. And then with 16th-inch acrylic strings that have been curled, that's the airflow. So we'll see how it turns out. It's going to be a pain in the neck, but it's fun. And what am I going to do with it? Well, get your money out, you can buy one. There'll only be one. Mine is going to be a high-end model car cabinet. So, you can buy the Franklin Mint, makes these wonderful cars at 1/24th, 1/18, 1/18 scale. They got engines, they got everything in them. And mine will be holding those. Mark's going to have a still in it. So, like we used to say in corrections, I have a friend that drinks too much. So he'll have a little still, and he'll be serving who knows what out of that. So I design sometimes, this is my design. You say, why you can't get something out of that? Well, I did buy a little model Chrysler Airflow, and I'm trying to pattern my work after that, and you just make up how you're going to do it on the go. It's got evolutionary design, if you call it that. Some people don't. I have a friend that won't start building anything until he's got his graph paper, got every line, every measurement, every quarter, 1/8, 16th of an inch, everywhere. And that's how he works, and that's fine. Drives me nuts, but after you build a lot, and I don't know if you guys have built a lot of pieces, you gain a bunch of skills that some of those things you probably don't need to draw anymore. If you're making a table with an apron and 4 legs that are mortise and tenon, you might want some basic measurement. Yeah, I want the legs to be 28 inches because the top is about 29 inches, and you can just go ahead and do some rough drawings. I don't have a picture of this, but this was a client ordered a side cabinet for our dining room for dishes and stuff. So when I work with a client, sometimes they give me free rein. She said she wanted this, something for her dishes in the dining room that was nice. So I used the actual type of wood that I made in the real one, and I made a scale model, and where she could see things like, does the drawer, is it inset here, or is it overlap here? She chose inset, so she had both things. These are Cooper doors, curved on the front, kind of hard to see. You can come look later. And the Cooper doors up here. And I said, well, do you want doors in here and here? No, I'd like those open. So having a model, if you're working with a client or someone that wants you to build them a piece, it's really good to make a scale model. As far as design goes, by the time you've actually calculated the scaling down, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, however small you want to make it, you have almost planned the whole piece. You know, there's some detail that was not planned in making a scale model because we put it together with hot glue and stuff like that. But so think about making a model. Here's another example. Had a guy out in Rhode Island. He had a piece of glass about this tall, about this thick, an art piece. It weighed 50 pounds, solid, heavy. And he wanted a stand for it for his house. And I think, okay. He was not exactly a party animal, but he and his partner had parties. And, you know, you okay, he's got this 50-pound piece of glass, and then once someone with a glass of wine, oops, bang, and breaking someone's foot and hurt the piece. So the first thing I designed for him was something like this. It didn't have a platform on it yet. And I thought, okay, this is so cool. People are going to come in his house and say, look at that stand. He said, no. He wants him to come in and look at the piece of glass. So, how you doing? So I went back and made him a simplified, but I think a nice clean design that accentuates and supports the glass solidly. I happen to make it out of Riffs-On white oak veneer with the substrate being bending plywood for these. And then these little 45-degree corners. The base of his piece had a blue glass, and the top was a clear glass. So I had these made at a place called Potec Glass in northeast Minneapolis out of that blue glass and embedded them in the corners here and here. So it turned out being really nice. I'm sorry the thing isn't showing on the picture, but the model again helped. It helped me, and I could even take a picture of this. I didn't have to go back to Rhode Island every time. Send him the picture and say, okay, are we getting there? He said, yeah. He said, yes, he wants that. So my heart was broken that I didn't get to be the best guy in the world, better than his sculpture, but never mind. So again, models. Making models is well worth the time, especially if you're getting a complicated piece. This was more than my little brain could hold together as far as measurements here and there everywhere. So I actually had to make a drawing, a full scale. A lot of woodworkers I know always do a full scale drawing. Sometimes on 1/4-inch masonite because it's nice, you know, it's not tearing up and stuff. But I'm cheap, so I made, this is the full scale drawing of that china cabinet. So then I could take my measurements off here. I didn't draw in all of the joinery because I knew what I was going to do for joinery, but I got all the measurements for the basic parts. And so and more people probably do this level of designing or planning. This is, as I said, this is engineering. That's designing. And the sketches and so on, the ideas. So it's good to do full-scale drawing, as you're doing this or making a scale model to scale, you are actually building the piece. And from then on, it's just making sawdust and putting it together. Well, that's what we say. There's a picture, this isn't going to mean much, there's a picture on the slides that I don't have of a jewelry case that Mark and I collaborated on. We started together. He had some health problems, so I basically built most of it, and he got healed and came back and did a lot of the embellishments that Mark does so well with inlay and so on throughout. So that was going to be on a picture. And this is basically all of the drawing I did for that. It's a really complicated piece, and that doesn't make sense looking at it here. It basically had about a 6 foot long, about this high set of drawers that hung on the wall. We did have to put some brackets down to support it because it was heavy. And then on either side was a small cabinet with rounded doors that opened up. One had a carousel for jewelry, the other had spin-out drawers for jewelry. The big piece across here had 6 drawers pulled out and embellished with all kinds of cool stuff that Mark does. And then in the center, about this high with a slanted front and about this deep, 2 doors that open to a mirror. And inside the doors were pegs because it was slanted. The necklaces could hang down. And it was made, Mark had a piece of waterfall bubinga. If you ever seen bubinga wood, fantastic. It had 1 board, and I used up the entire board except for 5 little scraps this big. Came out just right. It was like that. But it incorporated the 2 little cabinets up here, had slate tops. And they also had birch curved doors. The main thing was bubinga. The main sides of all the cabinets was bubinga. It just phenomenal wood. I think that plank was worth about $3,000 when he bought it 20 years ago. So we don't even know what it costs today. So that was an $18,000 piece of work. And I gave him $25. I'm nicer than that. All right, and then I know maybe you guys do it too. This is a cabinet I never built. I'm probably not going to build it. Anybody want to take these plans home and give them back? You can have it. It's not well, it's kind of to scale. So I thought I'd have 2 side pieces with the drawer unit in between, and just playing with the different curves. And I don't know if you do this if you're sitting around the house and get an idea, get out your paper and your pencil and go at it. You don't have to go to SketchUp. You can do it with a pencil. It's also good practice. Rich Helgeson always says, sometimes just sit down with your pencil and draw curved lines, because we work in curves quite a bit. And it just helps your hand. When you do a sketch, your sketch doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be enough so you get your idea down on paper. You can visit it again tomorrow and improve it or throw it out or whatever. And then if you do, also keep your drawings. Put them in a drawer someplace. A couple of years from now, you're having a slow part of your life, nothing's going on. Wonder what's in this drawer. You start looking through, oh, look at, I'm going to go build that. There's one piece I wanted to show you on the slide that I don't have a picture for. It's an elliptical shape desktop, if you will, this wide, about this deep. with 2 drawers, spin-out drawers. I like, spin-out drawers are just more interesting than good old pull-out drawers, just because I said so. And it has 4 cabriolet legs incorporated. And that was one of those miracle things that happens once in a great while. I was building something over here, this working away, and I'd had a cut-off elliptical ring from a previous project. And I just let it sit around the shop because, you know, I like ellipses, and I have fun with ellipses. All of a sudden, this entire plan for this piece came into my head. Like, it just, the whole thing was there. I quit doing that, went right over and started sawing out lights and making that piece. And it turned out to be a really, really nice piece. It's in England now, some friend's house. So if you ever get one of those things, don't say, oh, I'll get to it later. Do it. And I've never had a complete piece come into my head. I've had a semi-complete front view, for example, come in and then go out developing it more. But this one, everything was there in one blip. Probably a bunch of other, that's the way our brains work. They store little bits and pieces that we've seen or experienced, or maybe I'd seen that ring enough times that it was hatching in the background. And that's how our brains work. That's how my brain works. When it works. All right, so have any of you done a piece that I call has evolutionary design? You start making something and you don't know quite what the next step's going to be. And, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then, yeah, then I'm going to do that. Have you ever had that?
Yeah. Always.
Yeah. Let that happen. You don't have to have a 100% plan done before you make sawdust. The thing I forgot to say, prefacing everything, was to me, design is more important than fabrication. I've seen a lot of shows at the Woodworkers Guild with some absolutely perfectly fabricated pieces. And they were this nice. Oh, that's nice. Oh, look at that. Walk, we call them walk bys. And you look, there's no gaps, there's nothing wrong, dimensions are good, they're solid, but they're boring. And we got enough boring furniture in the world. We have enough boring things in our lives.